Good morning, dear colleagues. My name is Robert Hatala. I'm from Slovakia, and we, together with Stephan, represent the Group 3, which dealt with online resources such as internet, webcasts, and clinical cases. To start our discussion, we have defined a couple of issues which we believe are relevant for correctly assessing these issues. First of all, it's the availability of resources. And there are several caveats in this area. First of all, it's the question of language. Most of the resources and the high quality resources are in English language, which might be an issue according to our discussion from several countries, especially in the generation 50 plus, let's say. So there is some reluctancy towards education in foreign language, where I do not feel myself so familiar. Then there is a question certainly of quality. We believe that ESC brand is a brand of very reliable quality. Nevertheless, I think the measures are very appropriate to assure a continuous quality control, especially in the light of omnipresent industrial influences. Then the very important point is individual willingness to switch to digital learning. And there are several factors which influence this willingness. Certainly, you need a certain smart digital literacy to be open to these kind of resources. But there are also very practical things like time constraints. If you look at the structure, at the age structure of people who watch our webinars, then we will see two peaks. One is the group below 35, which contribute about 25%, and then a similar group above 60. So it appears that the group between 35 and 60 is so busy with many other things and many other duties that it can be also a factor in accessing these resources. The good messages, I think, which was shown in the very recent analysis of the data of our ESC website is that more than 2/3 of the audience remains at the webinar for at least 45 minutes. So this improved a lot from the past, where it was a couple of minutes. So the majority of our colleagues really want to go through the whole webinar, which lasts 60 minutes. What was our suggestion, what I believe could be improved also after some experience in my country, in my hospital, is promoting a kind of group-based electronic learning. The group of young cardiologists in my country organizes group meetings where they follow webinars, and then after following there is a very fruitful and very open discussion. I think this could contribute, this somehow puts together the otherwise anonymous aspect of the social media with a very fruitful person-to-person interaction. So we believe that this culture should be cultivated. Then there are some inhibiting factors, and this is mainly mainly the existence of a plethora of competing websites. These competing websites, which work on a commercial basis, are usually very aggressive in promotion and in advertising, and I'm sure all of you receive many such proposals every day into your email. We shared the opinion within our group that it is not so easy to find the relevant educational content on the ESC website. We believe it could be easier, and several young colleagues approached me during the last 2 weeks when I asked them, in the light of this meeting, to give me some input and on these points. They told me, I in fact didn't discover all the opportunities on the ESC website, in spite of the fact that I am quite frequently looking at the website. And then the point I have already mentioned is quality assurance. I think the power of electronic learning is the fact that everybody expects that it's really absolutely up to date. So that we have to keep this promise. We have to continuously review the learning content, to have references to the very recent guidelines, and so on. Sometimes the learning content might be outdated, relates to guidelines which were already published several years ago, and focused updates were since that on the scene, but are not always reflected. And then the last point that was already discussed here this is the patient information. Until now, we do not have any ESC-approved patient information, and I believe, as was already pointed out, this is also an area where localizing such recommendations for patients into local languages would be very useful. So I think that was all for the first line. I pass to Stephan.
Yeah, thanks. So what are the opportunities we identified? Well, as you just heard, the group believes that the educational content provided by the ESC is pretty mature already. However, finding the content is difficult. It's organized by tools and not by content. And we believe that designing sort of electronic packages which are based on the topic list would actually help to find the content you are actually looking for. And if we are good in that, doing so, then we believe that these packages would be ideally and attractive for other partners as well. For example, for industry partners or for larger hospitals, as we heard already that this exists. So we believe we should attract other partners with these tools rather than waiting for the industry, for example, to create their own learning tools. And by doing so, it seems to be important that the ESC increases their efforts to brand itself as an institution which stands for quality. I think if we look at our learning tools, we probably have to improve the internal review process of what we actually provide, and thereby can increase quality, and thereby probably can increase visibility. We need to improve advertisements by social media. This, as we have heard already, is of increasing importance, and perhaps IT can help us in prioritizing ESC content in the several search engines. We would need advice from them in this regard. The group thinks that the ESC should use the so successful Congress to even further advertise the e-learning content. We have some sessions, but we believe that this is not enough, and that efforts to advocate and advertise what is here provided electronically could increase. We think that in the end, exams could be disseminated electronically, which would accelerate the adherence to ESC exams further. And we believe, and this is said before, we believe that with respect to further tools of learning, micro-learning videos, so shorter units which would help to attract people who have not that much time, would actually increase and complement what we have so far with respect to electronic learning.
Thank you very much. And while we're waiting, I've just got a question. You mentioned that the 35 to 60 group is the difficult to target group that doesn't, look at webinars much. What part of online resources from the ESC should we focus that age group on, do you think?
So this was a question for us, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think, as we said, we would need shorter-term units of education for this group. If it's a video, if it's perhaps even other structured clinical case, if it's ideally prepared subcategory of a guideline, I think there are multiple ways, but I think it's attractive if the user sees that it's only taking 5 to 10 minutes instead of 45 minutes.
I think when we looked at the access data on the webinars, and you look at the number of participants, when a good number of participants is usually above 500. And if you look individually, you will see that only webinars dealing with guidelines had more than 500 participants on the live online presentation. And this clearly shows that what people are looking for, they want a condensation. Guidelines are usually 70 or 80 pages long, and people expect that, okay, I exchange reading of 80 pages for 60 minutes of concentrated listening to a webinar. So I think this is the message from the analysis. People like condensed information.
This is Marco Zavatta from San Marino Society of Cardiology. I just had the suggestion about this very topic you were talking about, because you have in your hands a very strong product that is webinars. The quality has been until now very high. The correlation and the linking with guidelines is very strong, very evident, and very easy to understand and to see. But you went over the topic of the time constraints and the need to have something more condensed, even more than those 60 minutes you were mentioning before. And maybe could be a solution to leave, the webinars online, because it's nice to have the live discussion and the live interaction, but then you take the webinar and you dissect it. You dissect it regarding topics, regarding clinical cases. You have usually 2 clinical cases. You take those 2 clinical cases away, you put them online, and you tag them systematically, so it's easy to access them. So you have both of them. You have quality product, and then you have quality sub-products made in the same moment with the same material, but just by cutting them, dissecting them, if you can.
Yeah, this is a great idea. On the other hand, we want to keep it interactive. So the fact that it's a live webinar where others have a chance to interact is probably something we don't want to give up. So we have to see how to design this, but dissecting it into smaller portions in general is probably a good idea. Whether this is the right format or whether we have to look for other formats, we have to see, I guess.
Maybe Just a brief comment. I think what we need to work more on is that on the paradigm that electronic learning is kind of alternative or complement to traditional textbook-based learning. I think this is not the case. Electronic learning is nowadays conditio sine qua non. You cannot be appropriately educated as a modern cardiologist without electronic resources.
Yeah, I mean, videos is much faster way of learning than. It's more common than question. We also have to be very careful about how we deal, like ECC, with the private sector. I just take the example of how much we'll be involved, how much ECC want to be in front line of electronic digital learning. Because, for example, take this company 123 Echo from this Austrian guy, Thomas Meindl, I think. I mean, look, we have also, somehow we have to learn also from them because, you know, this 1 minute every day sending, there are very creative ideas that we can use. But if we want to go more on partnership, then we'll let them. Okay.
Yeah, I think the ESC has a huge opportunity here because it has the quality branding, the potential of being the leader in the field with respect to quality. And I think this is the card the ESC has to play. And yes.
Thank you very much.